I'm Marcus, 24 years old now, but this story starts when I was 17. Growing up, I believed my parents supported my academic dreams. When acceptance letters arrived from top universities, they suddenly claimed they couldn't afford tuition. Confused but determined, I searched for answers in our home office one night. What I discovered shattered everything. Financial documents showing my parents had secretly invested $150,000 in my brother's business while telling me college was too expensive. The betrayal forced me to leave home. Now my mother demands I return, claiming the family is falling apart without me. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely. Growing up in Portland, Oregon shaped who I am today. Our neighborhood wasn't fancy, but it was comfortable. Neat lawns, decent schools, and that sense of security that comes from knowing your family was financially stable. My father, Thomas, worked as an electrical engineer at a respected firm, bringing home a solid income for over 20 years. My mother, Laura, built her career as a nurse practitioner at the local hospital, eventually supervising the emergency department nursing staff. We weren't rich by any means, but we lived well. Family vacations every summer, a comfortable 3-bedroom house, and new clothes when we needed them. My brother Kevin was 4 years older than me, and from early childhood, we couldn't have been more different. School was always a struggle for him. His report cards were filled with C's and D's, and parent-teacher conferences usually ended with recommendations for tutoring or extra help. But Kevin had other talents that my parents praised constantly. He could fix anything mechanical, had an uncanny ability to understand how things worked, and possessed a natural charm that drew people to him despite his academic struggles. "Kevin's got street smarts," my father would say proudly. "That's worth more than book smarts in the real world." Each time he said this, I felt a slight sting, even though I knew he wasn't trying to diminish my achievements. Where Kevin struggled with textbooks, I thrived. Learning came naturally to me. Math equations solved themselves in my head. Literature spoke to me in ways I couldn't explain, and science fascinated me beyond anything else. By junior high, teachers were recommending advanced courses, and I eagerly accepted every challenge. I maintained a perfect grade point average throughout school, not because my parents demanded it, but because the achievement itself felt rewarding. Beyond academics, I found fulfillment in debate team competitions, where logical thinking and quick responses earned me regional recognition. I volunteered weekends at the Science Center, explaining exhibits to children with a passion that often led parents to ask if I was studying to be a teacher. These activities weren't just resume builders. They were genuine interests that shaped my identity. Conversations about college started early in our house. When I was 14, during a family dinner celebrating my straight-A report card, I mentioned wanting to study computer engineering at a top university. "That's a great goal," my mother said, patting my hand. "We started a college fund for you boys when you were babies. Keep those grades up, and we'll figure out the finances when the time comes." This comment planted a seed of confidence that grew throughout high school. While many of my friends worried about tuition costs, I felt fortunate knowing my parents had planned ahead. They never specified amounts, but their casual references to college savings implied preparation. When classmates discussed student loans and financial aid forms, I listened sympathetically but privately felt grateful for my parents' foresight. My junior year became a pivotal time. Being named class valedictorian created expectations that I embraced wholeheartedly. That same year, I developed a modified photovoltaic cell for the state science competition that earned first place and an invitation to the national level. Local newspapers featured my project, and several university representatives reached out expressing interest in my application. This attention validated years of hard work and fueled my ambition further. Senior year arrived with both excitement and pressure. I researched universities meticulously, creating spreadsheets of program rankings, faculty achievements, and graduate employment rates. After careful consideration, I applied to 8 schools including Stanford, MIT, and several other top engineering programs. The application process consumed my evenings and weekends, writing essays, requesting recommendation letters, and completing supplementary questions. The first acceptance letter came in December from a respected state university with a partial scholarship offer. I was pleased but not overly excited. My sights were set higher. By March, I had received acceptances from all 8 schools, including my top choices. MIT offered a small merit scholarship, but Stanford became my dream when they accepted me into their honors engineering program. As the May decision deadline approached, my parents began making subtle suggestions that confused me. "The state university has a strong engineering department too," my father mentioned one evening. "And you could live at home, save on housing costs. Community college for 2 years might be smart," my mother added. "Then transfer to finish your degree. Many successful people take that route." These comments contradicted years of encouragement toward prestigious universities. When I reminded them about the college fund they'd mentioned, they exchanged glances I couldn't interpret. Meanwhile, Kevin had graduated with a business degree from a mid-tier state university and moved back home. He spent his days in our garage, tinkering with what he described as the next big thing in automotive technology. I noticed my parents engaged enthusiastically with his plans, offering advice during dinner conversations and showing genuine interest in his prototypes. This seemed normal, just parents supporting their adult son's ambitions. I never suspected their involvement went beyond emotional encouragement. As acceptance deadlines loomed closer, anxiety crept into my thoughts. My parents' enthusiasm about my accomplishments remained, but whenever conversation turned to specific universities, they became vague and changed the subject. Something didn't add up, but I couldn't identify what was wrong. The disconnect between their words of pride and their reluctance to discuss practical next steps created a growing uneasiness that would soon reach a breaking point. April of my senior year brought beautiful spring weather, but a growing storm in our household. With university decision deadlines approaching, I needed clarity about finances. One Sunday morning, I approached my parents in the kitchen, spreadsheet in hand, ready for a serious discussion. "I need to decide between Stanford and MIT this week," I explained, laying out my comparison chart on the counter. Stanford's engineering program is slightly higher ranked, but MIT offered a merit scholarship that would reduce costs by about $15,000 per year. "Can we talk about what's realistic from our end?" The uncomfortable silence that followed lasted too long. My parents exchanged those strange glances again, before my father cleared his throat. "Son, we need to have an honest conversation," he said, his voice unusually formal. "The college fund we planned isn't what we hoped it would be. Some investments didn't perform as expected." My mother reached for my hand. "We have about $8,000 saved for your education. Not nearly enough for those schools, even with scholarships." The revelation hit like a physical blow. $8,000? That wouldn't cover even one semester at either university. Years of casual references to college savings had led me to believe they had substantial funds set aside. "But you've always talked about the college fund," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What happened?" "The market hasn't been kind," my father replied vaguely. "And our finances are tighter than they appear. The house, the cars, there are payments on everything." This explanation didn't align with their lifestyle. Nothing had changed. No downsizing. No budget cuts. If anything, they seemed more comfortable recently, with my mother sporting a new watch and my father discussing potential vacation properties. "I can apply for more scholarships," I suggested. "Work part-time during school. Take out loans for the difference. Many students do that." My mother shook her head firmly. "Taking on massive debt at your age is irresponsible. We don't want you starting life with that burden." "The state university offered that partial scholarship," my father added, "or consider community college for 2 years, then transfer." It's the financially responsible choice. Their sudden concern about student debt contradicted years of encouraging academic ambition. Something felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint what. I left the conversation confused and disappointed, but not yet suspicious. The following week, I noticed something strange while helping Kevin carry supplies into his workshop. Brand new equipment filled the garage. A professional-grade lathe, specialized tools, and materials that looked expensive. When I asked about them, he mentioned finally having proper resources but quickly changed the subject. 3 days later, I overheard my parents arguing in their bedroom. Standing frozen in the hallway, I caught fragments that sent chills through me. "He's going to find out eventually about the investment," my mother hissed. "We can't keep pretending." "It was the right decision," my father insisted. "Kevin's business has practical potential. Marcus will understand someday." $150,000 isn't something Marcus will just understand, she replied, especially after we told him there's no money for college. I backed away silently, mind racing. $150,000? That would cover most of my education at either dream school. Had they invested that amount in Kevin's project, while claiming they couldn't afford my tuition? The possibility seemed too painful to be true. I needed evidence before confronting them. Their anniversary dinner the following weekend provided the opportunity. 4 hours, where I knew they'd be away from the house. I felt terrible violating their privacy, but my future hung in the balance. In their home office, I began searching methodically. The filing cabinet yielded nothing unusual, but my father's password-protected computer posed a challenge. After 3 failed attempts with obvious combinations, I tried Kevin Marcus 1998, the year of Kevin's birth combined with our names. The screen unlocked, revealing organized folders of financial documents. I wasn't prepared for what I found. 6 months earlier, my parents had transferred $150,000 from their investment account to a business entity called KW Automotive Innovations, Kevin's company. The transfer date coincided with when they began suggesting I consider more affordable education options. Further searching revealed their true financial situation. Their retirement accounts contained healthy balances. They owned rental property I'd never heard mentioned. Their combined income was higher than I'd realized. There was no financial crisis, no failed investments, just a deliberate choice to fund Kevin's business while claiming they couldn't afford my education. The documents blurred through my tears. I printed key pages as evidence, then carefully restored everything to its original state. Sitting on my bed afterward, I cycled through emotions: shock, disbelief, heartbreak. I tried developing alternative explanations, more generous interpretations of their actions. Perhaps they truly believed Kevin's business would succeed quickly and generate returns that could then fund my education. Maybe they'd planned to surprise me with tuition money once I'd selected a school, but these rationalizations collapsed under the weight of their deception. They had actively discouraged my applications for loans and additional scholarships, while knowing they had diverted funds that could have supported my education. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a statement about which child's future they valued more. That night, I barely slept, rehearsing confrontation scenarios in my mind. By morning, the shock had hardened into something colder and more determined. I needed answers, and I would get them, even if those answers destroyed the family relationships I'd always cherished. The next evening, we gathered for our usual family dinner, lasagna, my father's specialty that he prepared every Sunday. Kevin joined us, unaware of the storm about to break. The normalcy felt surreal, passing garlic bread, discussing weekend plans, my mother complaining about hospital staffing issues, all while the printed documents burned in my back pocket. I waited until dessert, when everyone was relaxed. Taking a deep breath, I placed the financial records on the table. "I need to ask about these," I said calmly, despite my racing heart. Specifically about the $150,000 investment in Kevin's business from 6 months ago. The silence was immediate, and absolute. My father froze with his fork midway to his mouth. My mother's face drained of color. Kevin looked confused, then concerned, eyes darting between our parents. "Where did you get those?" my father finally asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "That's not important right now," I replied. "What matters is that you told me there was only $8,000 for my college education while secretly investing $150,000 in Kevin's business. You lied to me." My mother recovered first, her expression hardening defensively. "It wasn't a lie. It was a business decision." "A business decision," I repeated, the words tasting bitter, and discouraging me from applying to top universities, from pursuing scholarships and loans. "Was that a business decision too?" My father placed his hands flat on the table, assuming the reasonable tone he used during disagreements. "Marcus, you need to understand something about investments. College is a theoretical investment with uncertain returns. Kevin's business is practical, tangible. We can see the prototypes, understand the market potential. So my education isn't worth investing in?" The hurt leaked into my voice, despite efforts to remain composed. "It's not that simple," my mother interjected. "Kevin has entrepreneurial spirit, real-world drive. College is wonderful, but not everyone is cut out for the business world. We made a calculated decision about where our money would make the biggest difference." Her words struck deeper than she possibly intended. Not everyone is cut out for the business world. The implication was clear. Despite my academic achievements, they didn't believe in my practical potential. I turned to Kevin, whose discomfort was evident. "Did you know about this? That they were funding your project while telling me they couldn't afford my tuition?" Kevin shifted uncomfortably. "Not exactly. I knew they invested, but not the amount. And I didn't know they told you there wasn't money for college." His admission was partial, but revealing. He wasn't entirely ignorant of the situation. "We were planning to help you too," my father added quickly. "Once Kevin's business takes off, which could happen within months, the returns would easily cover your education." "So my future depends on Kevin's success?" I asked. "Why wasn't I told about this plan? Why discourage me from applying for financial aid if that was the backup?" "Because we wanted you to be practical." My father's composure cracked. "Those elite universities, they're filled with theoretical thinkers who never build anything real. We've watched you excel academically for years, but when have you ever shown interest in creating something with market value?" The conversation was unveiling painful truths, not just about finances, but about how my parents fundamentally viewed me. Years of praising my academic achievements had masked their deeper belief that Kevin's practical skills were ultimately more valuable than my intellectual ones. "We made a choice to invest in a sure thing," my father continued, gesturing toward Kevin. "Your brother has a product, a plan. Your future is theoretical," I finished for him, "while Kevin's is practical. I understand perfectly now." The argument escalated as emotions overflowed. My mother accused me of being ungrateful for the opportunities they had provided. I pointed out the inequality and how they'd supported their sons. Kevin attempted to mediate but only worsened tensions by suggesting I could eventually work for his company. "After I make this successful," he said, "you could join as the technical expert. It could become a family business." "So, that's the plan?" I asked incredulously. "Deny me my education so I can eventually work for my brother? Become his employee instead of pursuing my own path?" Words became weapons, each more hurtful than the last. My mother cried that I had always been difficult, too wrapped up in books to understand real-world priorities. My father accused me of ingratitude and short-sightedness. I revealed years of feeling secondary to Kevin despite my achievements. "Maybe if I'd been a failure in school like Kevin, you would have valued me more." The words escaped before I could stop them. Kevin stood abruptly, knocking over his water glass. "I don't need this," he muttered, heading for the door. His departure collapsed what remained of our family dinner. I retreated to my bedroom, locking the door against my mother's attempts to continue the conversation. For hours, I sat motionless on my bed, processing the revelation that despite years of encouragement and pride in my academic accomplishments, my parents fundamentally didn't value my chosen path. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was a rejection of who I was and what I had worked toward my entire life. Around midnight, certainty crystallized within me. I couldn't remain in this house, pretending everything was normal. I needed to leave, not just for practical reasons, but for my emotional survival. The family dynamics revealed tonight had likely existed for years beneath the surface. Staying would mean accepting my secondary status, watching as my brother received support I was denied. Sleep evaded me as I mentally inventoried my options. My savings from tutoring and summer jobs amounted to just under $4,000. Not enough for university tuition, but sufficient to establish temporary independence. My friend Jackson had mentioned his parents had a finished basement they sometimes rented to students. Perhaps they would consider a short-term arrangement. At dawn, I began packing methodically. Clothes, personal documents, laptop, and the few valuables I owned. I wrote a brief note explaining my departure, not in anger, but in self-preservation. I need space to reconsider my future based on last night's revelations. I'll be safe, but I need time away to process everything. Please don't try to find me right now. As the early morning light filtered through my window, I took one final look at the bedroom that had witnessed 17 years of my life. The science fair trophies, honor roll certificates, and university acceptance letters on the walls told a story of achievement that apparently hadn't been enough. With my duffel bag over my shoulder and uncertainty ahead, I walked out of my childhood home, closing the door quietly behind me. Jackson answered his door in pajamas, confusion turning to concern when he saw my face and the bag over my shoulder. Without questions, he invited me inside and called his parents down from upstairs. The Sullivan family had always treated me like an extended family member during our 4 years of friendship, but I never imagined needing their help so desperately. "I need a place to stay," I explained, fighting to keep my voice steady, just temporarily, until I figure things out. Mrs. Sullivan made coffee while I explained the situation in broad strokes. The college funding deception, the confrontation, my need for space. They exchanged glances I couldn't interpret before Mr. Sullivan nodded decisively. "The basement apartment is yours for as long as you need it," he said. "No rent for the first month while you get on your feet." That first week passed in a blur of emotional extremes. During daylight hours, I maintained composure, researching community college options and applying for retail jobs online. Nights were different, lying awake on the pull-out sofa, replaying the confrontation, and second-guessing my decision to leave. Had I overreacted? Should I have stayed and fought longer for my parents to understand my perspective? My phone accumulated missed calls and unread messages from my mother. Each notification produced a physical reaction, shortness of breath, racing heart. I couldn't face her manipulative justifications yet. My father sent one text. "When you're ready to discuss this rationally, we'll be here." His dismissal of my feelings as irrational only reinforced my decision to maintain distance. The job search proved humbling. Despite my academic credentials and technological knowledge, employers saw only a high school graduate with minimal work experience. I applied for technical positions at electronics stores and computer repair shops, confident my skills would make me an attractive candidate. "Your resume is impressive for someone your age," said the manager at TechWorld during my interview. "But we need someone with formal qualifications or professional experience for this position." After 7 rejections, I adjusted my expectations and applied for a basic sales associate position at Electromart. The starting wage was just above minimum, but it offered employee discounts on electronics and flexible scheduling that would accommodate community college classes. When they called offering the position, I accepted immediately. My first paycheck barely covered basic necessities: phone bill, groceries, and a portion of utilities for the Sullivans. I created a detailed budget spreadsheet, allocating every dollar strategically. Luxuries vanished from my life. Eating meant simple, inexpensive meals. Transportation became walking or public buses. Social activities were limited to free events or hanging out at Jackson's house. With employment secured, I focused on education. The local community college offered associate degree programs in computer science, with credits transferable to four-year institutions. Using my high school transcripts and SAT scores, I registered for fall semester classes, a full load alongside my 30-hour work week. The exhaustion was constant. Mornings meant classes from 8 until noon, afternoons and evenings at Electromart until closing, then studying until my eyes wouldn't stay open. Weekends brought longer shifts at work and marathon study sessions at the library. The physical and mental toll was evident. Weight loss, dark circles under my eyes, occasional lapses in concentration. Yet alongside the exhaustion came unexpected satisfaction. Each challenge overcome represented another step toward genuine independence. My first successful technical repair at work earned recognition from the store manager. My initial college assignments returned with high marks and encouraging comments from professors. Small victories accumulated, building confidence that I could succeed without family support. Professor Rivera noticed my dedication in computer architecture class and asked about my background after a particularly insightful question during lecture. "You clearly have advanced understanding of these concepts," he remarked. "Your contributions elevate our discussions." When I explained my situation in general terms, he seemed genuinely troubled. "Students like you should be at top programs with scholarships. Have you considered applying for financial aid packages next year?" His recognition validated my academic potential in ways my parents never had. Our conversation planted the seed of a longer-term educational strategy. Excel at community college, build a flawless transcript, then transfer with scholarship support. The path was longer than originally planned, but the destination remained achievable. My support network expanded beyond the Sullivans. Samantha, a co-worker at Electromart, became a close friend after we discovered shared interests in programming and science fiction. Unlike friends from high school who struggled to understand my family situation, Samantha recognized the courage required to choose independence. My parents were similar, she confided during a lunch break. They pushed me toward nursing when I wanted computer science. It took moving out for them to finally respect my choices. 3 months after leaving home, I found an affordable apartment with 2 roommates, engineering students at the state university who kept similar study-focused schedules. Moving from the Sullivans' basement into my own space, however modest, marked significant progress. I assembled second-hand furniture, established my private study corner, and hung a single decoration, my MIT acceptance letter, framed as a reminder of goals temporarily deferred, but not abandoned. 6 months into my independence, I reached a moment of quiet revelation while walking home from a late shift. The initial pain of betrayal had evolved into something more complex. Disappointment mixed with gratitude for the resilience this challenge had forged. I was building a life defined by my choices rather than my parents' limitations. My transcript showed perfect grades despite my work schedule. My savings account, though modest, grew consistently. My technical knowledge expanded through practical application at work alongside theoretical foundations from classes. The person I was becoming was stronger, more resourceful, and more determined than the boy who had left home with a duffel bag and shattered expectations. The independence thrust upon me had become a gift I wouldn't have chosen but now wouldn't trade. This realization didn't erase the hurt of my parents' betrayal, but it placed that pain in a context that allowed me to carry it without being defined by it. That night, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and recognized someone different from the achievement-oriented teenager who had existed primarily to earn parental approval. This new version of Marcus had proven his worth to himself, which ultimately mattered more. The transformation wasn't complete, but the foundation was solid, built through sacrifice, determination, and the painful recognition that sometimes family is where you find it, not necessarily where you're born. The first 3 months of separation, my phone buzzed constantly with my mother's attempts at contact. Voicemails accumulated, their tone evolving from angry demands, "Call us immediately. This behavior is unacceptable," to tearful pleas, "Please just let us know you're safe." Text messages arrived several times daily, alternating between guilt trips and expressions of concern. I read each one but maintained my silence, needing distance to process my feelings without their influence. My father's approach differed entirely. Minimal contact, mostly practical questions about whether I needed my high school transcripts sent anywhere or if I wanted the remainder of my belongings. His emotional detachment was familiar but still painful. Neither parent acknowledged the fundamental issue, their deliberate deception, and the preferential investment in Kevin's future over mine. The first crack in my communication embargo came unexpectedly. One evening after class, my phone displayed Kevin's number, the first time he'd called since our disastrous family dinner. Curiosity overcame my reluctance. "Marcus?" "You actually answered." Kevin sounded genuinely surprised. "I've been trying to get the courage to call for weeks." The conversation began awkwardly, with surface-level questions about my living situation and classes. Gradually, it shifted toward more substantial territory. "The business isn't going well," Kevin admitted, his voice heavy. The prototype had design flaws that the initial investors pointed out immediately. "Dad's been helping me redesign everything, but we're burning through capital faster than expected." I felt conflicted, sympathetic toward my brother's struggles, but resentful that our parents continued supporting his venture despite setbacks. "Mom and Dad regret how everything happened," he continued. "They never expected you to actually leave. Dad especially. He's been different, quieter. Mom keeps rearranging your room, like she's waiting for you to come back any day." "They made their choice," I replied, more sharply than intended. "They decided my education wasn't worth investing in. I'm making different choices now." "It wasn't personal," Kevin insisted. "They genuinely believed my business would succeed quickly and generate returns that could help with your college costs, too. Then why hide it from me? Why actively discourage me from pursuing scholarships and loans? They could have been honest about their plan instead of pretending they couldn't afford to help me." Kevin had no satisfactory answer. Before ending the call, I established clear boundaries. I would answer his occasional calls, but I wasn't ready to communicate with our parents directly. The conversation left me unsettled, stirring complicated feelings I had managed to suppress through constant work and study. 2 months of relative peace followed. I established a routine balancing work, classes, and minimal social activities. My grades remained exceptional despite my challenging schedule. Financial independence, while difficult, proved increasingly manageable through careful budgeting and occasional overtime shifts. The apartment with roommates functioned well, each of us focused on our respective goals with mutual respect for study needs and quiet hours. This fragile equilibrium shattered one Tuesday afternoon when my mother appeared at Electromart during my shift. Seeing her standing uncertainly by the smart home displays sent adrenaline coursing through my system. She looked smaller somehow, her usual confident posture diminished. When our eyes met, her expression cycled rapidly between hope and apprehension. "Marcus," she said, approaching hesitantly, "you look thin. Are you eating properly?" The mundane question after 7 months of separation nearly broke my composure. My supervisor noticed my discomfort and offered to cover my section, allowing us to speak privately in the break room. "Why are you here?" I asked once we were seated at the small table. "Because you won't answer calls or texts. Because you're my son, and this separation has gone on long enough." Her tone carried the familiar edge of authority she'd used throughout my childhood when decisions weren't open for debate. "It's time to come home. This situation is tearing our family apart. The situation you and Dad created, I corrected, by lying about college funds and investing in Kevin instead. We made what we thought was the best decision for the family as a whole. Her defensive posture emerged immediately. Your father and I have always tried to do what's right for both our sons. By prioritizing one son's business venture over the other's education? That's not fair, Marcus. Kevin's business could have benefited everyone. And now? She hesitated, her expression darkening. Now your father is having health problems. His blood pressure is dangerously high. The doctor mentioned risk of stroke if his stress levels don't improve. The information landed like a physical blow. Despite my anger, the thought of my father's health declining created immediate anxiety. What kind of health problems? I asked, my resolve weakening. His blood pressure won't stabilize. The doctor says family stress is a major contributor. Her implication was clear. My absence was affecting his health. He misses you, Marcus. He would never say it directly, but he checks your old academic awards sometimes, just stares at them. The manipulation was subtle but effective, targeting my lingering affection and concern for family. Still, something felt calculated about this approach. I need to get back to work, I said finally. Tell Dad I hope he feels better soon. That's it? Your father could be seriously ill, and you'll just go back to selling electronics? Her voice rose, drawing attention from a coworker entering the break room. I'm building a life on my own terms, I replied quietly. The same way you and Dad made decisions on your terms. Please respect that. She left reluctantly, promising to return if I continued avoiding their calls. The remainder of my shift passed in a blur of anxiety. That night, I called Kevin seeking confirmation about our father's condition. Dad's having some health issues, he acknowledged. But the doctor said it's mostly stress from the business struggles. His medication is helping. Mom might have exaggerated a bit when talking to you. The revelation that my mother had weaponized concern about my father's health strengthened my resolve to maintain boundaries. The manipulation confirmed my decision to build independence was necessary for my well-being. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. My father's handwriting on the address. No return information. Inside, a 3-page letter expressed a mix of apology and justification that rang hollow. We perhaps should have discussed our investment strategy with you directly, he wrote. But we truly believed Kevin's business represented the best opportunity for family advancement. Your academic path seems secure, regardless of financial support. You've always found ways to excel through your own merits. The backhanded compliment stung. My academic success had apparently justified their decision to withdraw support, as if determination alone could fund a college education. The letter continued with updates about home renovations and neighborhood changes, as though we were maintaining casual correspondence during a brief separation. Only in the final paragraph did he address the core issue. The money invested in Kevin's business was never intended to deprive you of opportunities. It was meant to create greater opportunities for everyone in the family. If you would return home, we could discuss how to move forward together, including educational support now that circumstances have changed. The vague offer of educational support felt like too little too late. The fundamental issue wasn't just the money, but the deception and the message it sent about which son's dreams deserved backing. Returning home would mean accepting their narrative and priorities, surrendering the independence I had fought to establish. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer, without responding. The attempted reconciliation had only reinforced my determination to forge my own path, free from the conditional support and manipulative dynamics that had shaped my childhood. True healing would require acknowledgement and change, far beyond what they had offered. 1 year after leaving home, I stood in my apartment, contemplating the anniversary. The modest space showed signs of gradually improving circumstances. A new desk purchased on installment payments, a better laptop acquired through my employee discount, textbooks neatly arranged on shelves built from repurposed materials. Physical manifestations of progress surrounded me, but the internal transformation proved more significant. My brother Kevin was 4 years older than me, and from early childhood, we couldn't have been more different. School was always a struggle for him. His report cards were filled with C's and D's, and parent-teacher conferences usually ended with recommendations for tutoring or extra help. My community college transcript reflected perfect grades across 2 semesters of rigorous coursework. The computer science program chair had taken notice, recommending me for a competitive scholarship available to transfer students. The application required essays, recommendations, and evidence of overcoming significant obstacles, criteria I was uniquely qualified to address. "You're exactly the kind of student this scholarship was designed for," Professor Rivera explained while reviewing my application materials. Exceptional academic performance despite substantial financial and personal challenges. His recommendation letter detailed my classroom contributions, independent research projects, and ability to balance academic excellence with employment responsibilities. 2 other professors contributed similarly strong endorsements, creating a compelling case for my selection. The scholarship committee's decision arrived by email on a rainy Tuesday morning. Hands shaking, I opened the message to find unexpected validation. "We are pleased to award you our full transfer scholarship to complete your bachelor's degree at Northwestern State University, covering tuition, fees, and partial living expenses for 2 years. The financial support would allow transfer to a respected 4-year institution without crushing debt." Reading the acceptance details multiple times, I fought back tears that represented both relief and vindication. This achievement belonged entirely to me, earned through persistence rather than parental support or connections. The frightened, betrayed teenager who left home had evolved into someone more resilient, focused, and self-assured. Financial independence, while challenging, had become manageable through careful planning and strategic decisions. My wardrobe remained functional rather than fashionable. My diet simple but nutritious. My entertainment primarily free or low-cost options. These limitations felt less like deprivation and more like conscious choices aligned with long-term goals. "Your troubleshooting skills exceed those of employees with formal training," my manager noted during the promotion discussion. "Customers specifically request your assistance with technical problems." The additional income allowed modest improvements to living conditions and the ability to work slightly reduced hours during intense academic periods. I established a disciplined savings program, allocating specific percentages of each paycheck toward emergency funds, future educational expenses, and eventually technology equipment related to my field of study. My meeting with academic advisor Dr. Franklin became another pivotal moment. Reviewing my transcripts and career goals, he identified an opportunity I hadn't considered. Westfield Technologies has an internship program specifically designed for students transferring from community colleges to 4-year institutions, he explained. They're seeking candidates with both theoretical knowledge and practical technical experience. Your exact profile. The application process proved rigorous: technical assessments, multiple interviews, and portfolio review. Competing against students from more prestigious backgrounds, I emphasized my practical experience troubleshooting complex technical issues at Electromart alongside academic achievements. When the acceptance email arrived, the opportunity exceeded my expectations. The internship offered 20 hours weekly during academic terms, full-time during breaks, with compensation significantly above typical student positions. Most importantly, Westfield's employee education program provided tuition assistance for relevant coursework, supplementing my scholarship and further reducing financial pressure. "We were particularly impressed by your ability to balance academic excellence with professional responsibilities," the internship coordinator explained during my orientation. "That demonstrates the work ethic and time management skills essential in our industry." This external validation from respected professionals carried special significance after years of feeling my academic path wasn't valued within my family. people with no personal connection or obligation had assessed my potential and deemed it worthy of substantial investment. My support network continued expanding beyond initial connections. Professor Wilson, who taught advanced programming concepts, introduced me to the university's competitive coding team. My contributions to their regional competition success led to further recognition within the department. Samantha, from Electromart, accepted a technical position at a software development firm, creating another professional connection that would prove valuable later. During this period of personal advancement, news about my family arrived occasionally through Kevin's infrequent calls. His business continued struggling despite additional parental financial support. The prototype redesigns failed to attract serious investor interest, and supply chain issues complicated manufacturing attempts. My parents had extended their home equity line of credit to provide additional capital, creating financial strain they had never anticipated. Dad stressed all the time. Kevin confided during one conversation, "Mom keeps saying things will turn around, but the business consultants aren't optimistic about our current approach." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The sure-thing investment had proven far riskier than my education would have been. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, but recognized the situation validated my chosen path of self-reliance rather than dependence on their financial support. A completely unexpected connection emerged when Mr. Peterson, my former high school physics teacher, contacted me through social media. He explained that a private foundation supporting STEM students had approached him seeking candidates for their supplementary scholarship program. "I immediately thought of you," he wrote. "Your situation represents exactly what this foundation aims to address: exceptional students facing financial barriers to appropriate educational opportunities." The application process was straightforward, with Mr. Peterson's recommendation carrying significant weight. The resulting award provided additional support for educational expenses beyond tuition, research materials, conference attendance, professional certifications, creating opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise accessed. These accumulating successes created a profound shift in my self-perception. No longer did I view myself primarily as someone who had been denied opportunity and betrayed by family. Instead, I recognized myself as someone who had created opportunities through persistence, intelligence, and determination. The narrative transformed from victimhood to empowerment, from reaction to purposeful action. Standing in my apartment that one-year anniversary evening, I realized with sudden clarity that my parents' failure to invest in my education had ultimately forced me to invest more deeply in myself. The return on that investment, in confidence, resilience, and self-knowledge, potentially exceeded what a conventional, parent-funded university experience might have provided. This revelation didn't justify their actions or erase the pain, but it reframed my experience in a way that acknowledged growth alongside struggle. The transformation was far from complete. Financial challenges remained, and emotional scars from family betrayal still affected relationships and trust. Yet, undeniable progress illuminated the path forward, a path I was navigating successfully without the support I once thought essential. In that moment of reflection, I recognized that while my parents had failed to believe in my potential, their lack of faith had ultimately strengthened my belief in myself. My grandparents' 50th anniversary celebration created the inevitable family reunion I had managed to avoid for nearly 2 years. Declining attendance wasn't an option. These were the grandparents who had attended every school event, sent encouraging cards before exams, and genuinely supported both their grandsons without favoritism. Their milestone deserved acknowledgement, regardless of complicated family dynamics. Entering the rented banquet hall, I barely recognized myself compared to the teenager who had left home. Externally, professional attire replaced the casual clothes of my high school years. More significant were the invisible changes: confidence in my stride, certainty in my decisions, and freedom from seeking parental approval. The past 2 years had transformed me fundamentally. Family members noticed immediately, conversations pausing as I moved through the room. Distant relatives commented on my mature appearance and professional demeanor, unaware of the circumstances behind these changes. My grandparents embraced me warmly, expressing joy at my presence without probing about family tensions they likely understood better than they revealed. The inevitable encounter with my parents came during the pre-dinner reception. They approached tentatively, uncertainty replacing their former parental authority. My father had aged visibly, gray hair more prominent, posture slightly stooped. My mother maintained her composed appearance but couldn't disguise the nervous energy in her movements. "You look well," my father offered awkwardly. "The university program must agree with you." "It does," I replied, maintaining polite distance. "The scholarship and internship have been excellent opportunities." Superficial conversation carried us through the initial interaction. Comments about the venue, grandparents looking well, distant relatives' life updates. The practiced small talk of strangers with shared history rather than the intimate communication of close family. Throughout dinner, we maintained this careful distance, observing social expectations without addressing underlying issues. After the formal celebration concluded, my father approached as I prepared to leave. "Could we speak privately for a moment?" he asked, gesturing toward the venue's small garden area. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Outside, away from relatives and music, his carefully maintained facade cracked. "I made a mistake," he stated simply. "Investing in Kevin's business instead of your education was wrong. I recognized it too late." The direct acknowledgement surprised me. "What changed your perspective?" "Everything," he admitted. "Kevin's business is failing despite multiple redesigns and additional funding. We've lost nearly everything we invested, plus more borrowed against the house. Meanwhile, you've succeeded completely independently, proving all our assumptions wrong." His admission validated my experience, but couldn't erase the pain of betrayal. "It shouldn't have taken my success or Kevin's failure for you to value my path." "You're right." He stared at his hands. I had fixed ideas about practical versus theoretical value. I couldn't see that your academic strengths represented equally valuable potential. That blindness cost our relationship, and nearly cost you your future. He reached inside his jacket, removing an envelope. "This doesn't fix anything, but I want you to have it. We've sold some property to stabilize our finances. This portion belongs to you. What should have gone toward your education originally." The envelope contained a cashier's check for $40,000. Significant, but far less than the original investment in Kevin's business. The amount represented approximately what tuition would have cost for 1 year at Stanford. "I appreciate the gesture," I said carefully, "but I don't need this money now. My education is funded through scholarships and internship benefits. My expenses are covered. Please take it," he insisted. "Use it for graduate school or starting your own business someday. It's not about need. It's about acknowledging what should have been yours from the beginning." After consideration, I returned the envelope. I've built my path without this. Accepting it now would somehow diminish what I've accomplished independently. The acknowledgement matters more than the money. His expression reflected complex emotions. Disappointment at the rejected gesture mixed with respect for my position. We rejoined the celebration separately, the conversation incomplete but significant in its honesty. Later that evening, I found Kevin alone at the dessert table, his usual confidence noticeably diminished. 2 years of business struggles had tempered his formerly carefree attitude. "Your internship at Westfield is impressive," he said, attempting casual conversation. "They rarely accept applicants without completed degrees." "The technical specialist experience at Electromart helped," I explained. "Practical troubleshooting experience balanced my academic background." Kevin nodded, understanding the subtle reference to the practical versus theoretical distinction our parents had used to justify their investment decision. "The business is officially failing," he admitted quietly. "We're dissolving the corporation next month and liquidating remaining assets to repay some of the extended loans." The news wasn't surprising given earlier updates, but his willingness to acknowledge failure represented personal growth. The Kevin from 2 years earlier would have maintained optimistic projections despite contrary evidence. "Mom and Dad are in financial trouble because of me," he continued. "The house equity loan, cashed retirement accounts, all gone into a business concept that ultimately wasn't viable. That was their choice," I reminded him, unwilling to accept responsibility for their decisions. "I've been thinking," Kevin said, lowering his voice. "With your technical expertise and my business background, we could actually create something viable together. A partnership that combines our strengths. I've got connections from the failed venture who might invest in something new with the right technical foundation." The suggestion carried uncomfortable echoes of my parents' original plan, eventually working in Kevin's business rather than pursuing my own path. Despite his sincere intention, the proposal represented continuing the family pattern rather than breaking it. "I appreciate the offer," I replied carefully, "but I'm committed to my current path, completing my computer engineering degree, potentially graduate studies afterward. My internship at Westfield provides exactly the professional experience I need in that field." Disappointment flashed briefly across his face before he nodded acceptance. "I understand. You've built something impressive independently. Following your own vision makes sense." Our conversation marked another subtle shift in family dynamics, my brother recognizing my autonomy rather than assuming I would adapt to his plans. The relationship remained complicated but had evolved toward mutual respect rather than the former imbalance. The anniversary celebration concluded with polite goodbyes and vague promises of future communication. Returning to my apartment that evening, I reflected on the family interactions with unexpected emotional clarity. The anger that once dominated my feelings toward my parents had gradually transformed into something more nuanced: disappointment in their choices, but recognition of their humanity and limitations. Forgiveness remained challenging. Their actions had forced unnecessary hardship and permanently altered our relationship, yet carrying bitter resentment would only limit my own progress. The middle ground I reached involved forgiveness without forgetting, acknowledging what happened while refusing to let it define my future relationships or self-perception. In the months following the anniversary gathering, communication with my family increased slightly but maintained appropriate boundaries. Occasional text messages, holiday cards, brief updates about significant achievements, the strained politeness of distant relatives rather than the intimate connection of immediate family. This arrangement protected my independence while acknowledging remaining connections. My educational and professional progress continued accelerating. The scholarship committee extended funding for graduate studies based on undergraduate performance. Westfield Technologies offered continuing employment with increased responsibilities and tuition support for an advanced degree. Academic advisors discussed research opportunities aligned with emerging technology fields. The path stretched before me clearly: completion of undergraduate studies, graduate program admission, specialized research, and eventually, positions at innovative technology firms developing solutions to significant challenges. This vision had existed since high school, but now rested on foundation built through personal effort rather than family support. The betrayal that had initially seemed devastating ultimately forced self-reliance that proved more valuable than financial assistance. Learning to depend on my capabilities rather than external support created resilience that no amount of parental funding could have provided. The difficult journey from betrayal to independence had transformed potential weakness into genuine strength. Today marks another milestone: graduation with highest honors, debt-free, with full-time employment secured at a leading technology firm. The audience includes former professors, mentors, co-workers, and friends who supported this journey. My parents and brother sit awkwardly in the back row, invited as acknowledgement of our shared history rather than current closeness. The betrayal taught me self-reliance and determination. Sometimes the best thing family can do is force you to discover your own strength. I forgive them, but I'll never forget what I learned. Invest in yourself when no one else will. That return is guaranteed. Have you ever had to forge your own path when others didn't believe in you? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family challenges. Like and share if you know someone who needs to hear this message of resilience and self-investment. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes our greatest strength emerges from our most painful challenges.